Ladies and gentlemen, when the morning breaks, heaven opens its gates to those who rise early. The hours between 5 a.m. and 7 a.m. are not ordinary. They are spiritual gateways where destinies are written, victories are declared, and divine alignments are activated. Whoever owns the morning commands the day. Owning the morning means taking authority over the first and most critical hours of the day, when the atmosphere is calm and spiritual energy is heightened. The early morning is not an ordinary time. It is a sacred window where divine transactions take place. When a person rises early, before distractions set in, they are able to align their spirit with God's plan and speak prophetic words that shape the direction of their day. The world is governed by spiritual laws, and one of them is timing. Those who understand the power of the early hours never take them casually. In the silence of the morning, destinies are programmed, victories are declared, and peace is established long before the battles of the day begin. The human mind is most receptive at dawn. The heart is quiet, and the noise of life has not yet invaded the soul. That is why the morning is the best time to plant seeds of faith through prayer, declarations, and meditation on God's word. The energy released through early morning communion strengthens the inner man and empowers the believer to face whatever challenges may arise. When you wake up and begin your day with intentional prayer and declaration, you command the spiritual realm to align with divine order. Every spoken word becomes a decree that heaven recognizes. It is not about religious routine, but about establishing dominion before the world around you awakens. The morning is a platform of authority. It is when kings legislate and leaders receive instruction for the day. The person who prays at dawn is like an architect designing a blueprint for success. The declarations made in the morning carry prophetic weight because they are birthed in stillness and sincerity. Heaven listens more attentively when the world is quiet, and angels are assigned to carry out the words spoken in faith. The reason many people experience confusion and frustration throughout the day is because they start their day without order. They rush into activity without first aligning with divine will, and as a result, they react to circumstances instead of ruling over them. Owning the morning is about discipline, focus, and consistency. It means prioritizing spiritual growth over physical comfort. It requires waking up early, not for routine, but to establish divine authority over the day. In those early hours, you silence fear, cancel negativity, and invite favor, wisdom, and direction. You become sensitive to God's voice and receive ideas, strength, and guidance for the assignments ahead. Every successful person, both spiritually and naturally, understands that the morning holds creative power. What you declare in the morning determines what unfolds in the afternoon and what concludes in the evening. Prayer in the morning sets a spiritual tone that cannot easily be broken. The person who owns the morning will not be easily shaken by unexpected challenges because they have already spoken peace into their day. Every victory in life begins with intentional preparation, and the morning is where preparation begins. Prayer is a spiritual transaction that connects the visible with the invisible, the natural with the supernatural, and the human with the divine. It is not a mere religious act or a repetitive routine meant to impress others. It is an exchange of strength, wisdom, and power between man and God. In every genuine prayer, something leaves the human realm and something greater returns from the realm of God. Through prayer, burdens are exchanged for peace. Weakness is exchanged for strength. Confusion is exchanged for clarity, and fear is exchanged for faith. The one who truly understands prayer does not approach it as a duty, but as a privilege to interact with the creator of the universe. When a believer prays, they are engaging heaven's economy, making withdrawals from divine resources through faith and surrender. Prayer is a transaction because it involves giving and receiving. Man offers faith, worship, and surrender, while God releases grace, answers, and instructions. Just as business requires communication and exchange, so does prayer require engagement and participation. The posture of the heart matters more than the posture of the body. When a person prays with understanding, they are not reciting empty words. They are making legal declarations that affect spiritual realities. Heaven recognizes the authority of prayer when it is rooted in faith and truth. The reason many people do not see results in prayer is because they approach it like a religious obligation instead of a divine negotiation. In every true prayer, there is movement in the spirit. Something shifts, something changes, and something is released. Prayer is how destinies are rewritten, doors are opened, and purposes are unveiled. When someone prays with revelation, they realize that prayer is not just asking for things, but aligning with divine order. It is through prayer that the will of God finds expression on earth. The words spoken in prayer carry life and authority because they are backed by faith and conviction. Every time a believer prays according to God's will, heaven responds by authorizing that word to manifest in reality. Prayer draws power from the unseen realm and manifests it in the visible world. It is a divine transaction that bypasses human limitations and connects directly with the source of all wisdom and strength. This is why prayer must be approached with reverence, focus, and expectation. Prayer also transforms the one who prays. Every genuine encounter in prayer leaves a deposit of divine nature within the human spirit. The person rises from the place of prayer renewed, strengthened, and enlightened. In that exchange, God imparts direction, peace, and purpose. When prayer becomes a lifestyle, it turns from an event into an atmosphere, an ongoing connection between God and man. True prayer is not mechanical, it is relational. It is the continuous dialogue that sustains spiritual life and keeps the believer in alignment with divine will. The morning is a time to program your destiny because it is the foundation upon which the rest of the day is built. Every morning carries within it the potential to shape outcomes, decisions, and experiences that will unfold throughout the day. The early hours are sacred moments when the atmosphere is calm and the human spirit is most sensitive to divine instruction. When a person rises early to pray, to speak life, and to make declarations, they are not just beginning a day. They are setting a divine order that governs everything that follows. The world responds to voices of authority, and the morning gives the believer the platform to exercise that authority. Those who understand the mystery of the morning do not allow it to pass carelessly, because they know that whatever is spoken and done in the morning becomes the seed that determines the harvest of the day. Programming your destiny in the morning begins with intentional words. Every spoken declaration carries power because the mouth is a creative tool. When you declare favor, peace, and wisdom at dawn, you are establishing spiritual laws that guide your steps throughout the day. The morning is when faith should speak louder than fear, when hope should rise above doubt, and when the believer should command the alignment of circumstances with divine purpose. The power of early morning declarations lies in their timing. The spiritual atmosphere is uncluttered, and heaven's attention is open to those who call upon God with sincerity. The day is like a blank page, and your words are the ink that writes its story. Through prayer and declaration, you create a spiritual blueprint for success, protection, and guidance. The morning is also a time of divine communication. It is when the human heart is quiet enough to hear instructions from God. Many breakthroughs and revelations come in the stillness of early hours, because the mind is free from distraction. When you program your destiny through prayer in the morning, you are positioning yourself to walk in alignment with God's direction. You begin the day with clarity, confidence, and peace. Those who neglect the morning often find themselves reacting to the day instead of ruling over it. Spiritual authority is exercised when you take charge of the first hours and commit them to divine influence. Programming destiny in the morning is an act of faith and discipline. It means taking responsibility for your life and refusing to let circumstances dictate your outcome. Each morning provides an opportunity to reset, to realign, and to speak new realities into existence. The spiritual world operates by principles, and one of those principles is that creation responds to sound. What you release in the morning becomes a command that shapes your experience. When you consistently rise early to speak over your life, your environment, and your purpose, you build momentum in the spirit. Over time, your words become your world, and your mornings become the launch pad of destiny. The mouth is a weapon of creation because every word spoken carries power to shape reality. Speech is not a casual act. It is a divine tool given to humanity to establish order, release power, and manifest divine will. Words are seeds, and when they are spoken, they are planted in the atmosphere, waiting for conditions to bring them to life. Every declaration made in faith releases energy into the spiritual realm, and that energy returns as visible results in the physical world. The same way God created the world by speaking, man also creates his personal world through words. The mouth was not only designed for communication, but for construction, to build destinies, to command alignment, and to activate possibilities. What a person continually speaks becomes the environment they eventually live in. The mouth is powerful because it is connected to the spirit. Every word released from the mouth originates from the heart, and the heart is the source of faith and belief. When the mouth speaks faith-filled words, heaven responds. When it speaks fear and doubt, the same words create limitations. The law of creation operates through the mouth. What is spoken consistently becomes established. The reason many people live in defeat is because they use their mouths to reinforce negativity. Instead of declaring victory, they confess defeat. Instead of speaking healing, they speak sickness. Instead of calling abundance, they talk about lack. The mouth is not meant to agree with circumstances, but to challenge them with divine truth. Every morning, the believer is given an opportunity to speak into existence what they desire to see. The mouth is also a weapon because it carries the authority of decree. When a king speaks, his words are final, and when a believer who understands their spiritual authority speaks, heaven backs those words with power. Angels respond to the sound of divine declarations made by faith. Words are spiritual instructions that set things in motion. When a person declares peace, peace begins to flow. When they declare favor, favor starts to find them. The invisible realm recognizes sound and responds accordingly. That is why silence in the face of challenges can be dangerous, because unspoken faith is powerless. The voice activates spiritual laws that bring change. Using the mouth as a weapon requires wisdom and discipline. It means choosing words carefully, refusing to speak carelessly, and ensuring every statement aligns with divine truth. Words must be intentional, consistent, and filled with faith. Prayer, worship, and declarations are ways the mouth can be used to establish dominion. Every victory begins with a spoken word. Every mountain that moves does so in response to a command. The person who learns to use their mouth as a creative tool will never be a victim of circumstances. The mouth builds, restores, and transforms, and when guided by faith, it becomes the most powerful instrument for shaping destiny. Prayer recharges your spiritual power because it reconnects you to the divine source of strength, wisdom, and authority. Just as a device loses energy with constant use, the human spirit also drains through daily struggles, temptations, and responsibilities. Prayer functions as a spiritual charging station where the believer draws power from God to continue the journey of life with clarity and endurance. Without consistent prayer, the spirit becomes weak, discernment fades, and faith grows dull. Every time a person enters into genuine prayer, they are not merely speaking words, they are drawing supernatural energy that renews their inner man. Prayer replenishes what life depletes. It revives the fire of passion, restores focus, and aligns the believer's heart with divine purpose. The strength to overcome challenges, resist temptation, and maintain joy does not come from human willpower, but from the presence of God. Prayer is the key that unlocks this presence and keeps it active within. It is in the place of prayer that spiritual stamina is built. A praying person cannot be easily broken because their strength does not depend on circumstances. When the pressures of life increase, prayer becomes the divine current that sustains hope and courage. Every time the believer prays sincerely, they exchange weakness for divine might. The atmosphere of prayer invites the Spirit of God to breathe new life into weary hearts. It is impossible to remain empty after spending time in true communion with God, because prayer always refills what has been poured out. Prayer recharges spiritual power by keeping the believer sensitive to divine direction. When a person prays consistently, their spiritual senses remain sharp and they can easily discern the voice of God from the noise of the world. Many fall into confusion because their connection is weak, and that weakness comes from prayerlessness. A charged spirit sees clearly, hears accurately, and acts wisely. Prayer illuminates the mind, removes fear, and strengthens faith. It is in prayer that divine ideas, solutions, and instructions are birthed. Every act of effective service and ministry flows from the strength built in secret prayer. Without that constant recharging, even the most gifted individuals become spiritually dry and directionless. Prayer is not only communication, it is transformation. Each time you pray, the Spirit of God deposits new power within. You rise from prayer with renewed confidence, a peaceful heart, and a steady spirit. The situations around you may not immediately change, but the power within you grows to handle them differently. When the spirit is strong, challenges shrink and victory becomes natural. Prayer turns ordinary men into spiritual giants because it keeps them connected to divine energy. Consistent prayer ensures that the fire never dies, that passion for God never fades, and that the believer walks daily in strength and boldness. The one who values prayer will always have access to power that never runs out, for prayer is the divine circuit that keeps the spirit alive and unstoppable. Prayer transforms the prey, because every genuine moment spent in communion with God produces internal change before external change manifests. Prayer is not only about altering situations, but about reshaping the heart, mind, and spirit of the one who prays. When a person enters the place of prayer, they come as they are, but they do not leave the same. The presence of God is a refining atmosphere where fear is exchanged for faith, confusion for clarity, and weakness for strength. In that sacred exchange, the human spirit is molded and aligned to divine purpose. The more time a person spends in prayer, the more their character, mindset, and perspective begin to reflect divine nature. Prayer is a furnace that burns away pride, doubt, anger, and unbelief, leaving behind a vessel that is yielded, strengthened, and empowered. Transformation through prayer happens because the posture of prayer is surrender. A person who prays acknowledges their dependence on a higher power. In that place of humility, their will bends to divine will. The prayer learns to let go of control, allowing God to shape desires, refine motives, and correct wrong attitudes. Many seek God to change their circumstances, but in prayer, God often changes them first. A transformed heart can handle blessings wisely, face trials with courage, and influence others with grace. This inner change becomes the foundation upon which external victories are built. Prayer sharpens sensitivity, renews passion, and deepens intimacy with God, producing strength that is not visible but undeniable. Prayer also transforms through revelation. When someone prays, their mind becomes quiet and their heart becomes open to receive divine insight. New levels of understanding, patience, and spiritual maturity are formed. The prayer learns to see life not through the lens of fear or frustration, but through the lens of faith. Their perspective shifts from self-centered desires to God-centered purposes. This shift influences behavior, decisions, and relationships. A person who prays consistently carries a different atmosphere. Peace flows where there was once anxiety. Faith rises where there was doubt, and authority replaces uncertainty. The transformation is not forced, it is a natural outcome of consistent exposure to divine presence. Prayer breaks the barriers of limitation within the soul. It deals with hidden weaknesses, silent battles, and internal struggles that cannot be fixed by human effort. In prayer, the heart is searched, the mind is renewed, and the spirit is fortified. The prayer becomes more patient, more discerning, more disciplined, and more courageous. Every spiritual giant is shaped in the secret place of prayer, because transformation happens away from the noise of the world. When prayer becomes a lifestyle, the prayer becomes a carrier of power, wisdom, and grace. This is why true prayer is never wasted. Even when answers seem delayed, the prayer